What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Wolf. Happy Tuesday morning to everybody out there. Shout out to all the traders. Shout out to all the Bitcoiners and all the future millionaires out there. Shout out to all of you. Really excited to jump into this conversation today. Chat about Bitcoin. Bitcoin was making some moves yesterday, I will say. I was feeling the FOMO, and I'm not even missing out, but I still felt the FOMO for everyone who was sidelined, because I bet there are a ton. But here we are, Bitcoin chilling right now at I think the same price that Space was at yesterday, but 108.6 ish is the last time I checked for Bitcoin. And some of the alts are doing well, some of the alts aren't doing as well. So I'm interested to see what people are thinking in these markets. But yeah, if you guys are excited to get into the conversation as much as I am, please retweet the space. Please quote tweet the space, tag a friend, let people know that the space has begun. If you're on stage or you're in the audience, we really appreciate it. It does help us out a ton. Spaces is not great at marketing themselves. So yeah, anyways, appreciate all of you guys. We try to put out these shows every single day, so be sure to turn on those notifications if you haven't already. And I will throw the mic over to Mr. Calvin. Get some thoughts from him on the market. Calvin, how are you doing, sir?
Good. How's everyone? I know the
Well,
world's upside down since I'm here on Tuesday instead of Monday.
dude, yeah, whoa, what's going on?
But yeah, busy yesterday, so I wanted to pop in early in the week and see how the markets were doing. So people are kind of asking me a few days ago, like, what is kind of the likely scenario? My opinion was that when we get this close to all-time high, what is the most likely outcome is that we snipe the highs and then we drop back pretty fast. Our Bitcoin market is just not very friendly, and so I'm pretty cautious. One of the things that I mentioned on the last show I was on was that oftentimes when we touch the 50 on the 50 day, within 7 days we lose that 50 day, and so we've bounced pretty strongly off of the 50, and we're on about day 5. The 50 is sitting around 102, 103, and so I'll be interested to see if it plays out. It's about a 90%, so there's kind of a 10% chance that it really could continue, but the odds are not good. So should be interesting to see how that goes. Alts did jump up pretty good, but yeah, this morning with Bitcoin down 1%, it's amazing how many of these are falling. Ethereum's doing well though, so it's kind of interesting, kind of a mixed bag out there. I think my original sentiment that we're probably going to see a lot of sideways and a lot of volatility and chop kind of sideways is probably still accurate at this point. So that's kind of where my head is at on the markets today.
Interesting. Okay. All right. So Mr. Calvin predicting a bounce off these highs and then back to a place that people maybe aren't so happy. Yeah, interesting stuff for sure. And as always, appreciate your input there, Calvin. It's good to have you on a Tuesday space for the first time. Let me throw the mic over to Dom. Dom, how are you, man?
Doing good. Yeah, I liked Calvin's response there. I think that he has a good overview of everything. I think my opinion over the last few weeks has also been that the market, in my opinion, could definitely still chop around. I think it would be super healthy. I think the last time I was speaking, we were at like 105 before we had that drop down to about 100K. And obviously buyers stepped in pretty strong there. What's interesting is that these order books are still very, very thin. So, it still goes on the idea that throughout the summer, we usually see liquidity thin out and, moves are a lot easier to happen. So like yesterday, that move probably caught a lot of people off guard. When I took a look at some of the order flows, it looked like it was actually mainly just Binance spot market buying about 150 million aggressively, and that kind of just pushed us up super strongly. And usually, like over the last few months, if we see that type of buy pressure come in, it wouldn't make that much effect. But with these very thin order books, less money is needed to make these moves happen. So, that's something I'm keeping in the back of my mind when I look at these moves. Is they're a lot more just kind of quick, and I guess it's harder to completely believe that they will sustain when you think that only a small amount of money can make these moves happen compared to when the books are a lot thicker. But as for altcoins, I think one thing that's super interesting to me is that Ethereum has been pretty strong over the last you know I don't know month basically. I mean it's been in this just perfect kind of channel bull flag, if you want to call it, since like beginning of May, and it basically hit a new high yesterday. So that's something that tells me, like, just on the base level, if you look at Ethereum on, a 2 day, a 3 day, right now it's kind of that point where, they're either going to trap all the longs and send us back down to the bottom of the range, or this would be the point that it sees some continuation. So I think Ethereum is probably the most interesting to me right now, because if we see Ethereum run back to, 3,000, I think some altcoins could wake up, and who knows? I mean, the fact that it's outperforming Bitcoin right now could be a telltale. So, that's something that I'm really keeping close eyes on, because Ethereum, I think, is still a key for the rest of this market. And, the last few times that I spoke as well, Ethereum's at this very important level where we have a perfect trend that's been established over the last few years. A bunch of VWAPs from the previous highs are all kind of coinciding at like 2,800. So me personally, I think that that's probably where my eyes will be to see what happens over these next few days. But yeah, I mean, overall, I still would not be surprised if the market just keeps chopping us around until kind of a stronger, consistent bid comes in. But I guess the last thing I'll add in is, I'm sure some of you guys remember the spot premium I was watching basically since we hit 75K, and that's still very, very thick in here. Super strong spot premium. So, the perp market is still not overly aggressive on it in any manner. And it seems like, I think a lot of people look at open interest or, funding rate and this and that and try to gauge like, oh, is this move driven by perps or spot? But to me, I think the single most important metric, at least on the broader high time frame, is to watch that spot premium. So, as of right now, it's like there's no signs that Bitcoin's overheated up here. If anything, it would just be buyer exhaustion or a lot of spot selling comes in. So that'll be a metric that I'm also watching super close, just because of how well it's worked this cycle. So that's my overall opinion and how I'll be watching the market this week.
All right, very nice. So ETH at a very critical point here. Dude, this market's gonna get real frothy if ETH starts to make runs here. And yeah, I heard yesterday, I'm not sure if this is fully true, but rumors at least, that potential for DeFi to basically get all the freedom is what I was hearing from regulations. And if that happens, dude, oh boy, it's probably just gonna be a field day again. And we will forget everything we learned in the last 6 months or so. But we'll see what happens. Let me throw the mic over to Bits of Wealth. Bits,
Hey,
GMT, bro.
what's up, guys? Yeah, what an interesting time right now. Been talking about ETH as kind of like my main focus for probably about a little over a month now, and it still really continues to be. I mean, I think right now, if you're not paying attention to Ethereum, you're potentially going to be chasing at some point, unfortunately. And I'm doing a lot of kind of like paired analysis where I am still looking at ETH against Sol against ETH against BTC, just kind of back and forth on really kind of the top 10. But yeah, I'm seeing a lot of signs that ETH could do something here, but to Dom's point, it hasn't quite gotten to the point where like I have full confidence and conviction that it's going to go. Like there is still that weird that that line seems to you know what I mean, there seems to be a line on on the charts where it's like, man, this is either going to get really exciting or it's going to get really bad, and I feel that's kind of where it's at right now. I shared an ETH BTC chart yesterday. It's up in the nest if you guys want to look at it. like right now, look, we're above what I'm calling high time frame support. There was an entry lower down that I took in this zone, but I've been buying spot ETH for a little while now since we kind of bottomed earlier this year. And look, I mean, if it doesn't go from here, unfortunately, this is like a big level even on the USD or USDT chart. Could it go up to like maybe 3K or so? Sure. But this whole zone, this whole like 27, 28, somewhere in here, it's you know, it's a risky place for Ethereum, unfortunately, and a rejection here would not be fun. It wouldn't be the end of the world or anything like that, but I'm kind of watching it closely. Could you get, because of the way it's kind of been rounding out here, like if this fails again, if it's just trapping these highs from May, and this thing breaks down, we're going substantially lower than where we're currently at right now. I don't think we'll make new lows. I do think we're going to make higher lows, but could you see 2K again? Could you see 1800 again? Potentially. I think off of a rejection here, like a true rejection here, I think it does open up that door. So we'll see. I mean, obviously, I don't think ETH is going down there unless the whole market is pulling back. I really don't think anything at this point is going to pull back like in a meaningful way, just because the bullishness kind of across the board is propping everything up. But yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I don't know. I was having a great conversation yesterday with another trader that I engage with a lot in like private conversation DMs and stuff, just off of the main timeline. And we were looking at like BTC 103, 105-ish levels, and it's, we were kind of saying like, man, at some point, those levels they're still interesting on the chart, unfortunately, like whether we go 111, 112 first, and then we go 105, 103 to 105, or if we go there first and then we go back up, 111, 112, and then higher. It's hard to say. And I think at this point, I'm still kind of just in that reactionary mode, because truly at the end of the day, you're still just ranging. Like if you want to keep it simple, and this is probably the best way to do it, right? And anything below that, like 111, 112 or whatever all-time high, is just a lower high at this point. And then anything higher than that 100K low that we just put in is just going to be a higher low. And as long as we're between those two levels, if we're above 100K but we're below 112, we're kind of just going sideways at the end of the day. Like if you're just keeping it simple, we're just going sideways. And could we go sideways for a few more weeks, few more months? Yeah, why not? I certainly could. So I'm kind of waiting for that break. I want to see either we're going to show some strength, we're going to take out the highs, and then if that happens, well, cool. We're probably going higher, right? Significantly higher. Otherwise, I'm watching, making sure we're still defending those lows.
Very nice. Very nice. Solid breakdown. Yeah, I agree. You'd brought up ETH a while ago, and I think it's good because some of us had written ETH off a little bit. Some of us were like, well, we'll see. I do like that. Like, kind of our group is basically just down for whatever does happen and happy to react off of it and move accordingly. I think that's probably the best benefit to like our market talk spaces here that we do together, is that we're like, we're documenting. We're like, okay, look, ETH is actually looking not so bad right now. There might be an opportunity here to hop in versus a few months ago. I know we were like, yeah, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I feel like maybe, like you mentioned a few minutes ago, like there are people who are going to just miss this entirely because they're not paying attention. So, yeah, solid breakdown there, man.
Even like the ETH ecosystem, right? Like I've noticed that like ETH memes and alts and protocols, they're showing a little more green than like Solana ecosystem or Sui ecosystem. So I think it's worth paying attention to. It's like there's going to be a rotation, and the same way Solana basically like created a vacuum in the crypto space, I think that's possible. If ETH really gets going and everything starts pumping, people are going to ape into that, and it could create a similar environment.
Well, very nice. All right, I'm looking forward to it. Cool. Let me throw the mic over to Mr. Popeye. How are you, dude? It's good to have you.
Hey, can you hear me well?
Yes, sir.
I'm a bit in a very, very remote day, so internet is not very,
Well, your voice
very
is
well.
pretty clear.
Yeah, very good. No, I think what Calvin was saying at the beginning is important because we are approaching all-time high, so it's always an area where not just, let's say, price matter, but also emotion are getting involved because there is FOMO, but there is also fear of a fake out. So you have a mixture of many factors all together because it's a key level for many reasons, especially psychological reason. In case we break all-time high, there is the news coming out also in the mainstream media. So you have a confluence of many things around all-time high. And also what Don was saying is also important to see how we are reaching here. So funding rate is still pretty neutral, premium price is still good. So there is many indication that the move is legit, even if still we didn't break it. And also the fact that we already swept the old all-time high, I think at the end of May, and we got the first rejection. The second attempt usually is the good one if it's a proper attempt. So it's definitely a good time to pay attention. I think in low time frame, I'm paying a lot of attention to the 106 level. It was a level that was swept many times, moved many times. Back last year when we break all-time high, we never had a daily candle close above 106. So every daily candle that we have above 106 for me are a sign of a legitimate move. And in low time frame, if we zoom a little bit in, probably on the 4-hour chart, you will see that in the move we had yesterday on the breakout, 106 we had a small order block. That was the last consolidation before the impulsive move we had yesterday. I think also the 4-hour EMA 200 is catching up on the 106 6K level. So any dip there would be a very interesting level to monitor. That is my line in the sand. If we bounce from 106, I think we will have the attempt to the all-time high. If 106 is lost, perhaps I can start to call this as a bull trap or a fake out, and potentially a lower high next to the last one that we printed on all-time high. So really time to pay attention and not time to FOMO for sure, just few K above all-time high and to chasing green candle, but probably good opportunity. I saw also today a lot of ETH beta player are doing well, probably are some of the best performer. I think Pepe, OP, Arbitrium are all up pretty well in the day. And usually when ETH beta player are moving, probably is showing, as Bit was saying, that the ecosystem is eating up a bit, and is potentially a good sign for it. But the 28 level for it is super important. So really to see what happened. I think is in the line in the sand with a legitimate breakout and a fake out that is very thin. So probably a good point to take some profit if people have a long position in it, and to see what happens next in case we move above 2,800.
All right, very nice. I appreciate that, Luca. Or not Luca, Popeye. I was going to throw it to Luca. Somehow, even out there without any service, bro's analysis is on point. What a legend. I appreciate you, Popeye. And hope you're doing well out there on the water as well. And hopefully you're making all that money, all that dough. Let me throw the mic over to Luca.
Hey man, thanks for having me. Always nice to be here. Yeah, I've been tracking Bitcoin as well over the last couple of days. I think it's really interesting that we are going up. It's something we've sort of expected, because a couple of days ago we've seen all of those guys screaming for the 2021 fractal. Everybody on the timeline was highlighting it, saying that back in 2021 Bitcoin also swept the high, and then basically we entered the bear market. But they fail to understand one thing. So basically, how I see this, the main difference is not between the macroeconomic environment or the liquidity cycles or anything along those lines. There are endless things that are different. But the main thing is the one that we can track, especially in the crypto market, is the Bitcoin dominance. And that's, I think, what plays a major role in shaping today's markets. Back in 2021, what happened was that when Bitcoin topped out in November to December of 2021, when it swept that high and went to $69,000, that's where the Bitcoin dominance already was very down. So it was around 35% or so, because the distribution phase already took place. So market makers already distributed. That's why the Bitcoin dominance goes lower. And I think that the Bitcoin dominance tells a very interesting story about the risk appetite in the markets. Whenever we have the Bitcoin dominance going lower, it signals that there's a very high degree of risk appetite, which actually is the one that leads to the distribution phase itself, due to the fact that market makers use that very elevated risk appetite in order to de-risk and distribute. So that's what I've been tracking, and I think it's very interesting to say that a lot of people have highlighted the correlation with the 2021 fractal without bringing any real confluence to that, right? We have the Bitcoin dominance right now being very high, unlike 2021 when it was really low, as the distribution phase already took place. I believe that moving forward, tracking the Bitcoin dominance will be very important, because when we'll have weakness developing in the Bitcoin dominance, whenever it happens, it doesn't mean to happen next month or in the next 2 months. It doesn't need to happen in a specific time frame. But when it will eventually happen, because at some point it will, as history shows us, that's when we need to start being cautious. But until then, I think that it's safe to say that the bull market is still on, and that the most reasonable and likely outcome for Bitcoin moving forward is to keep going higher. And I believe that unless the Bitcoin dominance goes lower, signaling that we're nearing the end and that this is the distribution phase and that euphoria is kicking in and market makers are trying to distribute, we're gonna have volatility on the midterm, right? That's not a question. We're gonna have ups, we're gonna have downs, but at the end of the day, on the long term, what really drives this bull market is, in my opinion, the Bitcoin dominance. And as long as it keeps staying strong and it keeps staying high, I believe that we're headed higher. So yeah, I don't think that this rally is a surprise. I think that after seeing a 10% correction, seeing so many people become bearish all of a sudden, that of course leads to these sort of bounces. And yeah, what I expect in the next couple of days is maybe you have a short-term pullback to flush some of the lay longs that have been piling in over the last couple of days. But in the next couple of weeks, however, I believe that we're headed much, much higher than this. So these are pretty much my thoughts on Bitcoin and the overall markets.
Solid stuff. And by the way, if anyone has any thoughts on any speakers while they're speaking, definitely throw up a hand and we can jump over to you. But otherwise, appreciate the analysis there, Luca. Let me kick it over to Mr. Teef.
Hey, what's up, guys? It's good to be here. A lot of intelligent comments and good conversation as always. Yeah, I've just kind of been sitting here enjoying listening to some of the other speakers speak. I tend to agree with a lot of the things I've heard. All-time highs are bullish, but often, tops don't last very long, which is why timing markets is incredibly difficult. But if I were to push my bets and wager, we are just going to continue to grind higher through the summer months. And, I think Ethereum is an important indicator to watch, right? It's sort of like the Russells of the crypto market, in the sense that if we can get a nice positive upward trend in Ethereum, that's going to be a boon to other risk assets, especially in the crypto space. I do agree with what the previous speaker said. Bitcoin dominance is something to continue to keep an eye on. The Bitcoin treasury companies and that narrative, I don't believe has exhausted itself yet. I think we are going to see some fireworks later on in the year with regard to some of these Bitcoin treasury companies. I know one that I've been looking at even as this call started is Similar Scientific, who is a medical company based out of Oregon State in the U.S., and they have 4,449 BTC on their balance sheet with an approximate value of $483 million, which is more than the market cap and the enterprise value of their entire company. So it seems to me that the market, for whatever reason, has not figured this out. And once again, we're given an opportunity to front run the trend, as traditional legacy finance bros still don't have the prerequisite understanding and knowledge to judge this industry, and they don't see the value in Similar. I do acknowledge there are risks, and of course, this isn't financial advice, but I don't know if it's necessarily a good thing to see Similar's MNAV trading below 1, right? It's like 0.7 right now, which is just insane. I think there's a speculative short attack on that stock in order to get them to give up their Bitcoin. And we'll see if that happens. Will these BTC treasury companies be forced to sell their Bitcoin with an MNAV under 1? I really don't know. That will be interesting. But yeah, there's just a lot going on. I continue to keep an eye on high yield junk, HYG, in public markets. That is currently sitting at $79.38. It's not been able to break out to its prior highs from last September, when it was above 80. And I think if you really want to see the uptrend continue, you want things like HYG to break out. And then I think that just goes back to the fact that we will be forced to print more money. Deficit spending is not going away. The government continues to dig itself into a hole and get into more and more debt and need to spend more and more money. And the fact that 25% of expenditures go to paying off government debt, that just means we're going to have to print more money. Interest rates are going to come down. So the whole macro picture is really setting up for asset prices to eventually keep going higher. So I wouldn't be a short here. I wouldn't be betting against anything. In fact, last week, Tesla being down was a gift from the gods, because I think that was just completely ridiculous what happened with the company. So I added to my Tesla position last week, and I've been adding to ETH. And today I'm adding more Similar. So we'll see how that works out. Not financial advice. Nobody has a crystal ball. You just have to make the best bet that you can possibly make. And everyone has different time frames. So I'm considerate of that. Some people are really short-term scalp traders, in daily. I used to trade daily. My average hold time was about 15 minutes. And after doing that for 10 years consistently, I moved more into swing trading and long-term investing, especially once I found Bitcoin. It was just an easy thing to do, is park my money in that, deal with the volatility, and look at it as a long-term savings account. So if there's any advice I can give to anybody here, it'd just be get some BTC.
All right, very nice. Yeah, some good points there about Tesla there as well. I'm sure a lot of people picked up that dip, especially now that I saw Elon and Trump sort of deleted a lot of the beef that had happened on Twitter or on X, and now it seems to have smoothed over. I don't know. I saw JD Vance went on a podcast like the same day it happened, or it was recorded the same day with Theo Vaughn. I was like, dude, that was the worst podcast stuff to go on right after something like that. He's definitely gonna poke in and try to figure out what happened. But no, it's not analysis there, Chief. I'm kick it over to OTG, and then we'll head on over to Mr. Bad Price as always. And if you guys are enjoying the space, please do follow all the speakers and retweet the space if you're enjoying the conversation. So, OTG, how are you, man?
Man, great! What a great day to be a trader. I was just listening to everybody's points, and I just to speak on Tush's recent point. I totally get the swing trading versus the day trading. And that average hold 15 minutes, oh my God, that just gets me going. I love the shorter the better, man. If you can be in and out in 5 minutes every time, it'd be amazing. But I do both because I it's nice to say, oh, I'm retired from the IRL world, but yeah, okay, great. But that doesn't make you retired unless you're generating all that money without getting out of bed. Trading is my job, so I still have a job as far as I'm concerned. So it's full-time trading, and I like to play it both ways. I really like that he brought up similars, and I don't remember what it was. It was in 2021. They had some kind of a monster rally. It was like, I want to say it was like 120 or 140 bucks. But that company, that I feel like they're about to pivot and do a pre last cycle strategy move where they're just not really talking about it, and all of a sudden they're just going to completely completely flip the script on their whole business model, and it's going to totally because what do they make? They make like arterial blood scanners or some crap like that. So you can't tell me that a company is stocking up on $400 million worth of BTC and they make blood test kits, and that's what they're going to continue to do. Obviously they're going to make a move, they're going to do the pivot like MicroStrategies did, which is brilliant. Why would you tell people about it, right? So I do think you would be front running it, people getting into that now. And I don't even know what the stock price is today, but it's nothing near that last high in 21. So it's obviously a good buy. We had a really great move this morning, CST time, my time, out of, everything really kind of moved around 6 a.m. CST. That pump, specifically for us, Sui. Oh, Sui. God love it, right? Sui made such a monster move for a short-term trader around 6:15 CST this morning that just really printed the money. And it just goes to show you, it's not all BTC and ETH. Those aren't the only options, right? Some people don't want to mess with these larger cap alts, let alone the lower large cap alts, like Cade's favorite Fartcoin. Not everybody wants to mess with Fartcoin, Cade. So Sui is a really good, reliable go-to when Solana's doing its own thing, XRP's doing its own thing, ETH. When these bigger caps are doing things that aren't as lucrative, look a little further down the line, just a little bit, and you see things like Sui and others that you can really make a lot of money on whenever these moves come up and down. Remember, if market go up, we print the money. Market go down, we print the money, right? So it's just, I think, important to remember that these alts, everyone wants an alt season, but if you're trading it both ways, what do you care? You know what I mean? Just don't forget about the low-hanging fruit and go easy on the leverage.
Dude, Farcoin is undefeated. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, it is.
Farcoin is undefeated.
Hey, I did want to make one more point. I'm sorry, I meant to say this already. Talking about Bitcoin treasury companies, I was talking in a Bitcoin space last night, and that topic keeps coming up, right? And I do think that we haven't seen the end of that hype, just like you said earlier. But I think it's important to remember to be your own Bitcoin treasury company first. You don't have to go pick the NSYNC or the Backstreet Boys yet. If you don't have your own Bitcoin, I really don't think you should be hanging the fate of your retirement and the wealth of your bloodline on which one of these fanboys you want to jump behind. Be your own Bitcoin treasury company. Buy some damn Bitcoin first, and then you can expose yourself to. I buy all of them, right? I own similar. I'm going to buy every one that comes out because I like picking all the seats at the table because I don't like to lose. And to me, the ultimate hedge is just buy it all. So I'm not saying don't be a Bitcoin treasury, participant, but I mean, why would you buy stock of somebody else's thing and get an IOU for some BTC value when you could just buy your own damn Bitcoin? I guess I just can't stop thinking about that.
Yeah, that is a great point. I think that message must be more for people who don't even have a crypto wallet kind of thing, where they're just like, they want some exposure, but they don't really care.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Because people here, I'm like, yeah, you might as well just hold your own Bitcoin. I agree with you there for sure. Great points. Let me kick it over to Bad Price. Bad Price, all right, man. GM to you.
Yo, good morning. How's it going?
Morning. Good.
Man, speaking of Fartcoin, Yeah, I've been looking at it lately, as a AI themed meme. And the way it's been trading, like I think it's a good kind of measurement of overall sentiment, like risk appetite. So I've actually kind of been looking at just how it's been trading. Um, yeah, seems like people are starting to get a little more risk on. Um, you know, of course, like we're close to all-time highs, so that kind of makes sense. It seems to be how the space goes sometimes. But anyway, yeah, I mean, we had a nice little move here, up to 110, and I think who was it? Yeah, I mean, I mentioned it the other day how Lady Trader kind of mentioned that that was one of the things she was looking for, was kind of like a push up to like 110 and then a possible rejection up there. And like a day or so after she mentioned it, there were like a lot more orders when I looked at the order book that kind of stacked up around there. And yeah, I mean, we got up there and we kind of rejected right out of that area. Still haven't been doing too much trading lately. I did hit a scalp on it the other day. Like actually, Landy hit me up with a screenshot of open interest dump, like right at that area. So, but overall, I was happy with the way the day went. The move up to it. Now I would just kind of want to see what happens tomorrow and the rest of this week. Like, um, it could go either way. We could go and crack all-time highs, or we could kind of, you know, go back, chop around, maybe go down to like, I don't know, 105, 102, something like that. So yeah, just kind of interested to see how the rest of this week goes. Other than that, let me see what else. Yeah, still looking at some altcoins. Like, I still think Render looks good. I was looking at Ondo. Um, Someone mentioned it a couple days ago, and I haven't looked at it in a while. And I was like, oh man, it's actually looking pretty good. I still hold some that I've been holding forever at this point. I've traded in and out of it and around the position a lot, but I still hold a little from my original buy, which was like down around like 25 cents or something. And yeah, I mean, it's been it looks like it's been forming a nice like base here, right? Just kind of moving in a range sideways, and we're towards the bottom of that range. There was support around 78 cents that held up real well. And right now we're around like this range's point of control. So yeah, I'm looking for a move up to towards the top, up to at least like, I don't know, I'd say $1, 102 at least, till the next resistance is around there. So yeah, that's probably going to be the next thing I trade out here. I might do some trades on Ondo. But yeah, that's about it.
Solid, very nice.
Yeah, I
You
hit
think you
that
could get a
scalp the
nice
other day. I hit that scalp the other day, leverage scalp real quick. Like OTG was saying, quick, get in quick, get out quick. Mainly,
Were you
like I just
using
saw a
some
nice setup, and I actually need to go buy a new set of headphones. So I was like, oh, let me hit this real quick.
that came out of your main bag, or your like the other bag that you use on weekends sometimes?
No, I mean, it was just a small scalp. I was, looking at the charts, and I was actually like about to be on my way out the door. I need a new headset, so it's like let me hit a quick scalp real quick. You know,
Pay for those
so
headphones.
yeah, it was a quick little scalp. It wasn't nothing big or major. It was just
Nice.
Yeah,
Solid.
enough to get a really nice set of headsets. So
Let's go. Let's go. It's
good.
awesome to hear.
Yeah,
I saw Calvin's hand
that's
shot up
good.
as well while you were talking.
Yeah. So, Bad Price talks about points of control and these kind of really emotional, high volume kind of points of either resistance or support or whatever. Kind of the ultimate point of control is that all-time high area. And so, kind of wanted to just reemphasize the point that the trade at near all-time highs is the most emotional of all, because everyone's been watching it. There's a lot of hopes and dreams around that area. There's also a lot of opportunity, a lot of emotionality. Anytime emotions are at their peak, that's where traders get wrecked. So try to keep a little bit calm through this particular area. It's usually tougher to trade these like an all-time high or a point of resistance like this, because it's usually where bigger market players decide to make a strong move. So you usually don't sit at all-time highs and go for like 3 weeks just completely sideways riding that line. It's either gonna bust up really hard, or it's gonna get choppy and fall back. And so what's been odd about this entire move since April is that we really haven't seen a strong pullback ever since 75,000 all the way up to the all-time high. We only had one period at like 93 that we pulled back just for a temporary thing, but we pretty much went straight up. This last couple of weeks, we've finally seen the first pullback since all of this has happened. So it's hard to interpret that, is the pullback the entry point, or is the pullback the trap? Just because it's been so unidirectional. So anyway, I'd be pretty careful. I think a lot of emotions will happen around here. So it's kind of one of those things that if you were playing an option and you were like, let's do the biggest straddle ever, like it's just one of those things where you want to, the price is probably not going to last right here at the all-time high very long. So prepare for a move either way. That's kind of the point.
Very nice. Yeah, I think honestly people will be down for something to happen rather than nothing. Popeye, I saw your hand shot up. I'll go over to you.
Yeah, just to mention, since we are speaking about all-time high, that hype is due to break, I think, all-time high and price discovery just as we speak. And I think it's something that I try also always to mention, that outperformer keep outperforming. So I think hype has been one of the best performance over the past month, and today showing up that is again even anticipating, let's say, BTC or anything else, and is already trading almost in price discovery. I think since we had the bottom a few months ago, it moved from $8 to $40 now. So it was really an impressive move. I think it's one of the cleanest uptrend in the entire crypto market, and is just pushing higher and pushing higher. So trying to bet on laggard or a coin that didn't move already is, in my view, not really a smart decision, but is always to try to bet on the best performer, and hype has been the proof, I think, the whole cycle. And if Bitcoin keep pushing, probably hype will be still one of the best performer, and outperforming most of the other coin out there. I think the move is impressive. If you want to see the trend that is following, is basically the 100 EMA on the 4-hour. And every time it tapped, it bounced. Every time it tapped, it acted as support and bounce back. It looks even better than Farcoin if you see the recent price action. So really an impressive chart, and something that should be on everybody's watch list.
Definitely. I'm gonna throw the mic over to Dom. Dom, are there any other altcoins that are where I know Popeye had mentioned Hyper Liquid, and Bits has mentioned a couple. Price has mentioned Render, a couple others. Are there any altcoins that you see that are either bottomed out or at a decent place where they might be interesting? Are there any of those kind of coins that you're paying attention to?
Nothing really, pops out at the top of my head. I think I'm still very interested to see what Ethereum does here because I think that'll kind of be like the valve that opens up the potential for the rest of these coins to kind of push higher. But, I will say what Bit said earlier is the Ethereum ecosystem has been basically the top performing sector over the last week. Like Uniswap's been doing very well. Even some of the old Dino coins like Compound, Aave. Aave's been one that has been super strong for a while, but I still believe that we need to see Ethereum break this level, see expansion, and I think that'll be kind of the place where we see, okay, what are the fastest runners out of the gate? So that'll at least be what I'm watching. I don't think that we could see too much without Ethereum really seeing an expansive move above, 2,800 to 3,000. And I think that the really interesting thing here is about Bitcoin dominance because I know Luca was referencing earlier that the cycle's not over until Bitcoin dominance sees a strong fall, and I think that's an interesting conversation there because you know we've talked about this a lot. I think a lot of us in this panel. Is it, to me, it's a big possibility that we won't see Bitcoin dominance ever go below, say, 50% again. There's a high probability that that is actually a case, in my opinion. And that doesn't mean that we won't see a 5-10% drop, but to expect anything, I think, at the caliber of 2021, I think it's if you logically look at the differences between now and then, I think it's a very small possibility. So I'm just unsure about the approach of waiting until Bitcoin dominance has a big elevator down move to call it quits on this entire cycle. I think that that's a big key difference between now and then is Bitcoin has an institutional bid, and at the end of the day, most of these altcoins, people really aren't interested in them. Most of them aren't really appealing to most money that's entered this market the last 2 years. And I think we've seen that. You and I have talked about this a lot, Cade. We had all the evidence to show that Saylor and ETFs were the main driver behind this move. And I think unless we saw a massive expansion in the monetary system, big money printing, very low rates, I just think it's a low likelihood to see any sustained push in the broader altcoin market. So that's something that I'm keeping a strong eye on because I just really don't see Bitcoin dominance even going below 50%. I know that that's even 15% away, 14% away, but I think even if Bitcoin dominance dropped to 60 or even where it was in November, like 55, 50, 56, that would be a massive move. But once again, I don't think it would be sustained because people have realized that most of these altcoins, there's really no reason to be holding them long term, besides maybe a few that have stronger potential. Ondo, maybe we could throw in there a few of the other ones, but I think you guys get the idea. That's at least my opinion on the broader altcoin market. And back to the original question, I'm just interested to see when Ethereum makes that move because that'll be okay. We got a few weeks, a month or so to really get some profits out of altcoins. But as for bag holding, I don't know. That's not a camp that I want to be interested in.
Fair. Yeah, solid analysis there. I'll kick it over to Teeth. Kind of the similar question. See if there's any altcoins in particular you're paying attention to, or kind of licking your lips at, eyeing over the next week or two, and then we'd love to hear from Bitcoin Wealth as well.
I really agree with what the previous speaker said, and I've always been Bitcoin first. I do see the value proposition with Ethereum and smart contracts. There's perhaps one other cryptocurrency, or at least thematic crypto space that I'm interested in, which is privacy coins. I think the most undervalued one for the technology that they have is Zcash, because they really spearheaded zero knowledge proofs. I know their shielded pool is going up, so there's much more privacy on Zcash than there is, say, Monero, because Monero uses ring signatures, and probabilistically there is a chance that you can break that and break the privacy stack. But I really, I don't like XRP. I don't really like Solana. I don't really like Cardano. I like some layer 2s on Ethereum. I just think, we're not quite yet there where we have a robust enough ecosystem to say, who are the top 50 cryptocurrencies and what blockchains, and like who's managing and running those and developing on those. I think that's going to change dramatically in the next 10 years. I think you'll still see Bitcoin and Ethereum on top. Perhaps XRP. I mean, from a price standpoint, I would never disparage somebody from owning it for a trade, but owning it for the protocol, like XRP. I think privacy is undervalued. Not about AML or KYC kind of things. It's more about being able to give consent to use your data. So I'll land it there.
Careful,
stuff.
man. The XRP army, those guys might come after you.
Dude, that's
That's
right.
They have guns.
Talking any smack about XRP, but
He knows all about it.
with what Dom said, I kind of overall agree. Like, I think to see a sustained move in the altcoin market, we definitely want to see ETH kind of, break some resistant levels and, start behaving, with some strength. Everyone knows it's kind of been lagging all cycle. But still, regardless, I don't think that doesn't necessarily mean that there still aren't going to be like some good trades across the altcoin space. And still, I think, to really outperform, like bankroll wise, I think, you kind of have to trade some of these alts, not necessarily buy and hold, just catching moves, stuff like that, getting in and out of some leverage trades, so yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see what ETH does compared to like the overall alt market for real.
Love it. Love it. Let me I wanted to keep the same question over to Bits of Wealth, see if he's paying attention to anything else or if anything comes to mind. And then just saw we finally got Trading Soldier up here. Been fighting to get him on stage for a while. So definitely want to hear his thoughts on the market. But Bits of Wealth, I'll go to you first.
Yeah, one other thing, and this is kind of like on topic with like what I've been focusing on lately, which is like finding what are the metrics we need to look at to identify strength, and also to kind of identify like where is your value not going to be eroded away due to inflation or anything like that with these tokens, right? So um, pretty interesting. This is an exercise you can do just with AI or whatever, or you can go manually do it, right? But out of the top 50 cryptocurrencies, you probably want to know which ones have fixed supply, right? With a cap on the total number of tokens. Um, there's a nice little list, but it's significantly less than 50. And then out of those, you probably want to know how many of them are also basically nearing or at 100% of their supply being in circulation, right? That's an even smaller list. Very few. I believe it's less than 10 that
Wait, would
are
you
at.
explain what that is for people who don't know the circulating supply versus
Yeah. So, for example, I mean, let's look at like Litecoin, for example, right? I believe it's 84 million. I think is a total supply. They're at over like 90 something percent in circulation, meaning 75 million or so are already in circulation, meaning it's not locked up in vesting schedules, or it's not locked up waiting to be mined. Any number of way where the tokens could exist, but they're not out in the market circulating freely, right? There's someone's holding them somewhere locked up on some kind of schedule, and then at some point these get released, right? Like a good example is you see this in like memes or micro caps, right, where the team allocates a percentage of supply to themselves for marketing or for whatever, right? Or sometimes there's like a vesting schedule for KOLs, right? It's like, hey, we brought on all these partners and they're going to get their tokens, but don't worry, they're not going to get them for 3 months, or they're not going to get them for 6 months or whatever. And it just creates an environment where your fully diluted value versus your total market cap. There's a difference there, right? And it creates sell pressure, and there's a bunch of different dynamics that come into play. But essentially, like, if you're looking for things that are good stores of value in these types of times, right? Like where you can park funds, and they're maybe a little bit more resistant to bad economic conditions or downturns in the market. You want coins that have fixed supply. You want to find coins that ideally are 100% in circulation or close to it. Litecoin, XLM, Chainlink. There's a few others. Aave, I think. And then there's like BTC's close. BTC's very close. It's like I think 95% or something like that. And then if you remove all the coins that are lost, you're locked up somewhere, right? So it's an interesting case. But you also want to understand like what coins don't have a cap on their supply, and then you want to understand if there's like mechanisms that could potentially make that either net neutral or deflationary a lot of times, right? Where there's like burn mechanisms or there's different dynamics at play there. But yeah, like I've been spending a lot of time on this because the truth is like I think we get so caught up in just chasing the gains, the X's, but if you're not paying attention to how you're going to preserve those gains, like how are you going to protect that? How are you hedging against what comes next? Then you're missing half the equation, in my opinion, right? Or at least a good chunk of it. So yeah, I think it's a good exercise. Like go out there, if you've never done this before, go just do like in the top 50. It's go find out of the top 50 how many have a fixed supply. Out of those that have that are in the top 50, where are they in terms of circulating supply? Are they fully exposed to the market? Everything's in circulation, or is it still being mined? Is any of it pre-mined? You kind of want to look at some of this stuff. I know it's boring, like maybe it's not the sexy part of it. We just want to go eat memes and make gains, but I think this is important. I mean, it goes back to what Calvin has touched on and several other people, where it's like, okay, if this cycle is different, if we're not going to see a lot of the same behavior or key indicators that we've maybe seen in the past, or if it is similar, it's going to rhyme, and we're nearing, towards the end of all of this. Like these are strategies that you're going to have to think about. Like, are you going full cash? What are you doing? But if you're leaving it in crypto, and you want to kind of understand like where it makes sense, where you're more likely to preserve some of that value, I think you need to be paying attention to this type of stuff.
Yeah, that's a great point there, especially with, preserving wealth versus trying to build it up with the trading and the scalping and stuff. Yeah, 100%.
Don't park it in Solana. Just please
Dude,
don't do that. Please don't
yeah.
park it in Solana.
Always Sui instead. Always.
Oh dear
Um,
God.
Man, no, I saw the explanation, and I hope for anyone who is looking to get better at trading and learn and all that stuff, definitely go back and listen to this space. It's been pretty awesome. And if you're enjoying these conversations, definitely follow all the speakers up here and retweet, quote tweet, tag a friend. They really do help us out. And yeah, let me kick it over to Trading Soldier. Let's try to get him up on the stage all day long, and just now, after like 50 minutes, got him up on the stage. So I saw you pin something up at the top as well. Would love to dive into some of the things you're paying attention to in the market.
GM, thanks for having me one time more on the show. And today I want to be very straight to the point because I shared here on the space one post that I made earlier today talking about the law of effort versus result. This is a law that I look at when I'm analyzing, doing TA on the charts. And if we look back at last week price action on Bitcoin and also the volumes, very important, what we saw on the 5th of June on 2025 is a massive push to the downside on Bitcoin with a high volume spike. Okay, this, based on the law of effort versus result, told me and tell me, if I look at the chart, that a lot of volume, selling volume, was trying to push the price of Bitcoin to the downside. But as we can see on the 6th of June, immediately the Bitcoin price reversed almost with a V shape. Okay, so the effort of the market or the sellers of trying to push the price to the downside on Bitcoin failed. And the result was, as we are having right now, a push to the upside. And we are almost reaching new all-time highs. Yesterday we touched 110k on almost. So now what is the scenario that I'm looking at? So now we can have two scenarios. We can have the bearish scenario, that is the FTR, or fail to return to the new all-time high. So maybe we have the all-time high at 111k, and now we are at 110k, and maybe we drop down to the downside. And this is an FTR, a fail to return to the new all-time high. Or this is the most probably scenario, on my personal point of view, after the massive effort that the market tried to push to the downside the price, but it failed last week, is to have an explosive move, an expansion to the upside, okay? And then, obviously, breaking the previous all-time high, we are on price discovery mode. So, sky's the limit for Bitcoin. Obviously, supply and demand, all the sentiment in the market also is a very important thing to look at, because we got all the talking heads like Kiyosaki, we got all the news headlines talking about a war between the NATO and Russia. So people is massively bearish and they are expecting a crash. All the talking heads, all the massive influencers on TradFi are talking about a nuke in the markets. So it's not that contrary trading is that, but when all of the market is trying to push to the downside or selling, maybe the market gives us a surprise and push to the upside, and this is the painful side of the market. And also one thing that I want to comment, agreeing with Luca, one of the speakers that talked in the beginning of this show today, is about Bitcoin dominance. Bitcoin dominance, we are still above 64%. So we are in an uptrend, okay? In the daily time frame, we are in an uptrend. In the weekly time frame, we are in an uptrend. And until weekly Bitcoin dominance doesn't cool off a little bit and doesn't go down and starts to show more depletion and starts maybe reclaiming the 62% last swing low that we got on 13th of May of 2025, I don't see a full-on altcoin season or alt season as we call it, okay? So that's one thing that we need to look at Bitcoin dominance. And for the moment, we are still in an uptrend. There is no a clear reversal. Yeah, we have some coins as Compound, as Uniswap, as also Ethereum is pumping a little bit more, also Aave. But this is not a full-on altcoin season, okay? And to wrap up my analysis today, I want to comment also on USDT dominance, the dominance of Tether, of USDT, and I use it as an inverse correlation to the Bitcoin or crypto market cap price. And if we look at the USDT dominance chart, last week when we got the dump on Bitcoin, I was thinking, oh my god, oh man, this is retesting the 200 EMA from below, okay? And if we reject, this is going to be a massive reversal to the upside for Bitcoin. And indeed, we got that. The USDT dominance chart pushed to the 200 EMA on the daily time frame, and then, as now we are doing, is rewinding, is going down again. Okay, so I use it as an indicator of where the risk is in the market. If the Bitcoin if the USDT stable dominance is going to the upside, people is getting, or traders are getting more risk adverse, so we want to unwind our long positions. And if the USDT dominance is unwinding, as it's doing right now after rejecting on a major resistance level, as is the 200 EMA on the daily, we want to be on risk on assets, okay? Risk on assets means not stable coins, okay? This can be Bitcoin, or can be Ethereum, or can be altcoins that are more risk on. So, as I was saying in the beginning of my analysis today, low of effort versus result. The market tried with a lot of effort, with a lot of volume, to nuke or to push down the price of Bitcoin, but it failed. And what we got is a massive push to the upside, and now we are attacking new all-time highs. Maybe it's an FTR, as I said before. We can get a fail to return pattern here and come down to the downside. But I think that tomorrow, we will get the CPI, okay, data release, and this is a catalyst that I'm looking at for either way, push to the upside and break new all-time highs and entering a price discovery mode on Bitcoin, or maybe the bearish scenario, getting the FTR fail to return pattern and unwinding all the push to the upside that we got. But I position myself on the bullish side of the market.
All right. Solid analysis there, Soldier. I appreciate you coming through, and sorry it took so long to get you up here. Not sure what's been. I just got a message from North Star. Apparently he was also in the space, and I can't see him, so I don't know what's going on with X Spaces. You guys let me know if you find out anything. I was gonna say, if anyone else wanted to jump off anything Soldier had mentioned, or if anyone else is gonna be watching CPI data coming out, or there's anything else that's kind of over the horizon to be paying attention to, definitely throw up a hand. I know we're a little bit over time here, but figured I'd keep the space open for a little bit longer. Also saw one other person that jumped up. I think it's when Bits of Wealth brought up Litecoin, but I think they jumped off stage, so all good. Let me go to bad price to see your hand.
Yeah, just wanted to mention, tomorrow is full moon, so.
Oh yes, thank you for the update. So when you say that, do you mean tonight or tomorrow night?
No, what, tomorrow night? Yeah, tomorrow night.
All right, boys. It's time to lock in. If you've been locked out all year, this is your time to get back in. It's full moon time. You guys already know there's a one strategy for price. It's max long everything. Max every account. It's time. We're sending it. So we'll all go to the moon together. OTG, you gonna be trading that full moon tomorrow night?
Yeah, I definitely will. I'll let me actually, while we're talking about it, let me book that real quick on my calendar.
Oh boy, nice to do a live space or stream or something.
It's just ridiculous, man. I hate how accurate that really is, honestly. Like, I hate how real it is. And people can say, "Oh, it coincides all the time with all the with data and announcements." Okay, sure, maybe, but I can only see something work so well for so long without doing it, and feel like a complete fucking idiot. I mean, it works, dude. We like to break his balls, but it actually does work.
Dude, we're all about to follow him in and just get slaughtered in 24 hours. I just know it. Like the second we're all on board, it's gonna change up on us. What's up?
I'm telling you, Price is gonna start his own fucking moon phase perps decks or some shit. I see it happening now. I mean, I'm down to put some money into it. It couldn't fail.
I mean, listen, it's definitely possible. The guy's looking a little bit sus over there. I don't know. He's acting a little sus. I'm not sure. He's not saying nothing. We gotta be worried about this guy. Someone keep an eye on him, please. Just keep an eye on.
He's already doing it. Yeah, he's already doing it. I let the secret out.
Yeah, he keeps saying, he's been talking about like he's like putting together this computer or something. I don't buy it. I don't buy it.
Yeah, somebody book the domains now, and we'll hold them ransom.
Oh man, no, that's awesome. That's awesome. Wow, fire. Well, listen, I don't see any other hands. If you do, please just start speaking, because I just don't trust my Twitter, my X UI right now. But
hey, I had one more thing I did want to mention.
Please.
I see I see a couple of people that are in here that are newer to trading. I see shout out to Kelazoid and Gigazoid. I see them down here in the audience. For the people that are new to trading, remember that you start like you do anything, right? You don't just like get in the ocean and swim like Michael Phelps. You know what I mean? Training leverage. Do everything as if you're new. Know that you're new, and just slowly run into things. And I think that a lot of people get caught up trying to run around and beat James Wynn, and that's not what this is about. If you want to make sustainable passive income, if you want to get out of the real world and get into Web3 permanently, finding a way to do it sustainably, like realistically repeatable returns, not crazy FOMO fanboy hype shit. Really, honest. I mean, I know you can't predict what you're going to make to a T, but if you do this conservatively and you learn the ropes with training wheels, you learn the foundations of it, you can literally predict, hey, well, the market is X, the market is Y. We're bullish, we're bearish. I'm probably going to make this much money this week because I know I'm going to put out this frequency of trades. I know that I'm going to give this many hours each night. I know that I'm going to do those things. You can start to really build a passive income stream out of futures trading. So I just think it's sometimes people get on here and they see James Wynn, aka CZ, doing these crazy things on the timeline, and that people maybe lose sight of just how really achievable it is on real money salary replacing levels. So easy on the leverage, and anybody can do it.
I think newcomer have a responsibility to buy our bag at the top. I mean, I've been there, so everybody coming to crypto at the first cycle should be wrecked. So they have to go max leverage at all-time high.
You're crazy.
So we can unload. No, joking. Totally agree.
100%. Everyone goes here in this space to make a quick buck. Okay, so even if we say as experienced traders that they need to learn and take it slow, they will come with the mindset of getting rich without effort, and then they get wrecked because of poor risk management. They get demoralized and they abandon. But if you got good risk management and you lock in and you learn the fundamentals of price action, market structure, volumes, you will make it far.
Yeah, it's all about time in the market. So if you're new, just remember that. It's all about time in the market.
Indeed. Calvin, you got any wise words to drop on all of them out here? Stunting on everyone here with the 100,000 positions open and calling for bearish price action and all this stuff. Like, I'm kidding. But do you have any advice for the traders out there, especially the newcomers? I cannot hear Calvin. He may be rugged, unfortunately. His alpha is just too hot. It is just too hot. Dom, you got any final bits of advice before we wrap for any newcomers, any new traders out there, something that maybe you can take away from this space and apply?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the quickest, best advice I'll say is, if you're newer to the game here, I think the fastest way for you to learn is to get nitty and gritty with the short time frames. That doesn't mean that has to be your favorite time frame or type of trading, but I think if you want to kickstart your experience and get the most time behind the screens, and just like what Price said, time in the market. Of course, time in the market you can't really create rather than time just going by, but the more trades and reps you get in, I think that is the more, like if you're practicing for a sport, the more times you do whatever action you need, the quicker you're going to get, pretty good at that. And contrary to many people believe, if you can trade well on short time frames, most of the time you can trade even better on high time frame. So I guess that's my quick, simplest piece of advice.
Demo trading, guys. Demo trading also.
So if you trade good on low time frames, you can trade good on high time frames. Fractality is real on price action.
Yeah, I love that. That was a great tip there. Teef, any final thoughts before we wrap here? Any final bits of advice that might be helpful to somebody?
Yeah, I agree with the previous speaker. Have a high time preference, and don't go chasing shiny objects just because you can get more units, or they're cheaper, or they're second best, or whatever. There's a lot of reason for the winners being the winners and the losers being the losers. So sometimes being a contrarian isn't the right bet, and sometimes it is. So I mentioned Similar Scientific earlier. That admittedly is sort of a contrarian bet, and especially when it comes to BTC Treasury companies. So I don't know. Just take it one day at a time. Anything can change in the markets, as we know. All it takes is a tweet from Elon Musk or the president. So be nimble and be alert. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. Calvin, I saw you try to speak, but then drop down. But you're back up on stage, so I'll kick the mic over to you.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, I just really liked what Bits of Wealth says, man. The guy's a smart guy. When you know, that's why I've been so kind of bearish on alts, is because of tokenomics.
Because of Bits of Wealth?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, almost every coin has a problem with tokenomics. The very few are exactly the ones that he's talking about. And I don't talk about my own coin very much, but if you want to read Rain's white paper, it's just kind of a masterclass on how all of that works. But yeah, if you're looking for coins that have a limited, you got to have a fixed supply, the majority in the market. It's got to survive a few hype cycles, and then you've got something that will kind of slowly, as long as there's community, you're in good shape. But the challenge in our current market is that there's dilution based on the number of coins out there and the number of shiny objects out there. I think after people get burned a few times, they'll kind of come back to the things that have the staying power. So a lot of the stronger coins that have the right tokenomics can do well, especially if money's flowing. But my final point I wanted to say is that alt seasons happen when Bitcoin is high but boring. When people kind of feel secure in their Bitcoin position, they start throwing money at whatever, and that's where we get an alt season. So this is kind of that perfect mix. Like, that's kind of where we're at. If Bitcoin starts running, money will flow back to Bitcoin. If Bitcoin drops, then everything will fall together. So that's kind of how these markets work.
Boom. Yeah, love that one. OTG, I saw your hand shut up.
Yeah, I just wanted to remind everybody, anyone new to that, anyone new to futures, there's demo trading on almost every platform that you would trade on. So you don't have to run out here and be running with live bullets. I encourage everybody to practice with fake money. That's why they have a demo side of the platform. They have that for a reason. It costs a derivatives exchange a lot of money to add that. That's not just something super simple. It's an extended build out of the platform, but it's there so that you can learn what you're doing, so you don't lose your ass. You don't have to just run and throw your money right at a live trade. If you don't know what you're doing, you should practice for sure.
Yeah, I think prop firm trading is really good for that as well. Like, I don't know, I've never paper traded like ever. I just got kind of tossed in the Shark Tank when I was younger. It's like, here, drown or swim,
Yeah, but you're a prodigy. You're a prodigy, Bits. You're not normal.
No,
you're a freak of nature.
Stop. No, but seriously, prop firms make you a better trader too, because you really have to pay attention to your downside risk. And like Dom was talking about, trading like lower time frames, it definitely makes you a better scalper, like 100%. It's just kind of like geared that way. So yeah, I think if you want to kind of sharpen that blade, jump in there on the prop firms. And it's also really good because you're not, especially like newer people, you're not going to risk that kind of money. You're not going to risk like your own money, right? Like, you're going to look to pass the challenges. Okay, cool, pass the challenge. And if you get a run, you get a run. And of course, there's different strategies behind it, like high risk, just go, or, the steady kind of grind. So, yeah, I think it teaches you a lot. And I think it's really good, especially for newer traders.
Awesome. Trading soldier, I see your hand.
I want to comment on what was saying on the go, before about demo trading or paper trading. I disagree with that because when you are demo trading or paper trading, you are not feeling the emotions and you are not feeling the market and you don't have the unpredictability factor that the live market is putting on you. So my advice is to start with dollar trading. Put just $1 of risk in your trades and put little amount of risk, but put a little bit of risk, because psychologically this will allow you to improve and to manage your emotions. And also when you feel a win, you will feel the win by itself, even if it's $1, or when you feel a loss, you will feel the loss, even if it's $1, because live market is a different kind of thing of the demo trading or paper trading. And also I wanted to comment on what Calvin was saying before about the fixed supply coins. And yeah, I agree that if you want to invest long term, you need to be investing on something that has a hard cap or a known supply, okay? Not some token that somebody can print out of thin air and make rich the developers and just exit pump or act as an exit liquidity, okay? So if you look at that way, there are only 3 things in the crypto ecosystem that you need to look at. That is, the first one is Bitcoin, that we all know about. The second one is Litecoin, because it's the same as Bitcoin, but with 4 times more supply, okay? And the last one is Monero, XMR. Because even Ethereum depends on the usage of the network to generate or to burn tokens, okay? So if you want something that is predictable and has like a inverse logarithmic scale issuance, is Bitcoin, Litecoin, and Monero.
Love it. Love it. Yeah, solid stuff. I think that was super helpful for a lot of traders out there. I hope you guys learned something as well. I love hosting these spaces. It's been a great Tuesday Market Talk show. And please, again, if you haven't already, please follow the speakers up here if you enjoyed this space, and retweet it so that people can catch the live stream after it is recorded. And yeah, we have spaces every single day here at Wolf. Got some more stuff coming at you later on with real world assets. Got a space on Bitcoin later on. So definitely a lot of things to look forward to in this day. So catch you guys on the next one, guys. Dom, Popeye, OTG, Calvin, Bits, Price, Teef, Soldier. We had Luca and a couple others come through. Appreciate all of you guys as always. And we'll see you guys later. Take care.